We're back. We have a panel for the next 45 minutes on the state of talent and work in Web3. So you got a quick chance to scan the QR code, guys, if you want to interact, if you want to ask questions or anything like that. The last sort of 10 minutes of the panel will be them addressing questions, so feel free to do that if you want. We have had a change of moderator, so what comes up on the screen is not going to be the person moderating. Please welcome your new moderator, James Ray, and we have Amanda Keleher, Kirsten Pomales, and Felipe Macedo. Put your hands together, everybody.
Hey guys, how we doing? Testing. Is the mic on? There we go, guys. Come on, grab a seat. Oh, mics are there as well. Just give them a little check. So welcome today, guys. This is the panel discussion about the state and talent of work in Web3. So we've got a really exciting lineup for you guys today. And what we're going to do is just quickly go around, give a little short bio so you get to know everybody. First of all, my name's James. I'm a community manager at Being Crypto. I'm going to pass around to the discussion so everyone can introduce themselves briefly. Just take a 30-second bio or so.
Yeah, I'm going to try to put my own personal bio on talent protocols in 30 seconds. But throughout my career, I've done a bunch of stuff from computer engineering to DJ to working in advertising and now a Web3 founder. And throughout this journey, I've made a lot of people help me, and a lot of people wanted to follow kind of my journey. What new exciting things are you doing? And Talent Protocol is basically a way, a social and economic platform where people can share their goals and share their journey, and using crypto and tokens as a way to incentivizing more support, more interactions, and more people helping each other out.
Amazing. Amanda, if you want to go next.
Hi everyone, I'm Amanda Keleher. I'm the Chief People Officer at Consensus. We're a leading blockchain Web3 software company. You might know some of our product suite, MetaMask, Linear, Infura, for some of them. So I'm really excited today to be kind of talking about, I think we're going to talk a lot about hiring, but my passion really is about the people within the company and what you're doing to grow them and retain them, because I think that it has fundamentally changed in the last few years for a lot of reasons. And I think that our ecosystem is really going to be the space by which fundamentally changes how everybody works, I think. And that's truly fascinating to me. So there you go.
Thank you, Kirsten, if you want to jump.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here today. I'm Kirsten with Talent Layer. So my background, I was a freelance developer, freelance marketer for a while. I've always had software startups on the side, was completely Web2 until about 2020 when I realized that blockchain technology was completely changing the paradigms of how organizations are structured. And the biggest issues that I've ever faced in my own personal life as a worker, and then as a hirer of other people, has always been finding the right people, and that's something that most of us can relate to, whether we're looking for work or hiring. And really, what Talent Layer is it's our take on trying to solve the issues of connectivity between people. So right now, in the way that we hire, you basically have a lot of different platforms, a lot of data silos. What we're doing is we're breaking down the silos that really prevent people from connecting with each other, but I can get more into that later. Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys. And just wanted to say to everyone, everyone's having a great time at the event so far. This is a really important discussion for us today, because really it's about opportunities in this space and how we can get to them. So I just want to say, obviously, coming into this space, there's 3 ways we can really invest in it. We can invest in crypto, we can invest in NFTs, and digital assets, but really, most importantly, we can invest in ourselves and getting these jobs and elevating each other in this space. So I just wanted to try something very quickly, guys. So if anyone in the crowd is looking for a job currently, and be honest, just put your hands up. See, there we go. And if anyone in the crowd is also hiring right now, can you put your hand up? So this is what we're doing, guys. Today we're going to be connecting people, and this is what these events are about, connecting with people that need what you have. So we're going to jump into this, guys. We've got 10 amazing questions today. We're going to try and get through them all, but I know that it might be a little bit difficult. So coming in, and they all have a small miniature title. So first question is, and this is based around current trends. How has the Web3 space influenced the current trends in talent acquisition today? You guys can really jump in as you see fit.
Sure. So the first thing that comes to mind is like I think it was maybe 2020 that blockchain was like the top keyword on LinkedIn to have on your profile. So like ever since then, there's been just this massive flood of developers, like marketers, creatives, especially with the NFT craze, that have been getting into the blockchain space because of just more awareness on the technology, which has been really cool. So I think on one hand, I want to say that like mainstream interest in working in the blockchain sector is bigger than ever. And this is something that I've seen not be impacted as much by the market cycle, which was super surprising for me. I would expect like, you know, all the hackathons and conferences this year to have like less people that are, you know, I'm a dev and I'm teaching myself Solidity and I'm getting into it, but it's not. Like I've seen more than ever, which is super, super exciting. And then sort of switching to implications of blockchain technology for hiring more generally, this is where we haven't even began to scrape the surface of everything that's possible. And really, like, what are the benefits of blockchain technology? I think that in general, we could look at DeFi as an amazing example of what blockchain can do. So why is DeFi revolutionary? You can have quick speed of matching need and want. That's really cool. You can have basically composability fuel so many different applications, so much innovation, and you can have trust between parties that would normally never be able to interact with each other across the globe. So I see all of these things coming into the hiring space, and you know, some of us on this panel are also building technology that we're hoping will create this future.
I would like to add maybe from more of an individual perspective. I think that was like a macro perspective on what's happening in the market. I think from an individual perspective, in Web3 we have a lot of bounties, and I think that's kind of a new way of working, and I think is related to the trend of kind of fractional work, in the sense where a lot of us have multiple jobs and multiple roles at the same time with different companies, and that's, I think, getting more and more normal.
I'll give a slightly different answer. I think what is interesting is there's a lot of talent out there. And if you group it, it will vary from people who have got experience in the space. You've got some where it's a little bit, and then you've got curiosity. And I think that companies need to be adjusting their mindset in terms of attracting all of that talent. It's really important for us. If we want to grow our space, we've got to be inclusive, we've got to be bringing in all kinds of people. And so I think talent acquisition from a company perspective is you have to be really investing heavily in education and learning and development, and the strategies in place within a company to be able to support these different levels of kind of understanding and grow from within. So I want to encourage everyone, no matter where your kind of interest level is or your understanding is, don't shy away from the space, but be really thoughtful and intentional about looking for those elements in the companies that you want to work for, because that's what's going to support you and help you grow.
Amazing, guys. And I love what you said there, Philippe, because it's like the thing that came to my mind was, you know, wearing many hats in an organization. And I think that's really important today because, you know, with, you know, the rise of technology and AI, we do all have to pivot in this space and find our little piece of it. So, and moving on to question number 2, it's about decentralization. So as we move towards a more decentralized systems within Web3, how do you see this impacting traditional HR structures and talent management?
I can jump in. It's going to fundamentally change everything. We're starting to see it now. You have to get your minds around where people want to work, how they want to work, you know, when they're going to work is completely different. And if you can't get your head around that, I think that you're not going to have a good time. Following now, it's starting to happen, is the way people are compensated, and I think that that's really interesting. I always had this visualization in my kind of aspirational mind that, like, I want it to be like an a la carte menu where, an individual comes and starts with a company and they can choose the things that are meaningful for them, but the package then relates equitably amongst everyone. So like, this is the kind of thing. I just did an offsite with my leadership team, and we really thought a lot about that. Like, we have to match the industry. We have to match the people who are in the industry and what they're looking for. So I think over the coming years, you're going to start to see these things change. Fundamentally, the one that's happening right now is the fluidity of the workforce. So, for example, Consensus is about 900 people. We're in 40 different countries. So the geographical footprint that you're dealing with means that you're now running a 24/7 company just from a time zone perspective. So then you've got to be super disciplined in investing around working async, because you can't have a culture where everything is dictated by one time zone. So you're going to start to sort of like see it everywhere, and you have to be really intentional about it.
I can go. I think regarding decentralization, I was thinking one positive and one negative. I think the positive, and this is something that's been true for us, Talent Protocol, as a company. It's normally true for DAOs kind of to fund people in their community that have ideas, that contribute, okay, take some budget and go make that happen. But in companies, we're also experimenting with this. So instead of hiring full-time employees, we're actually funding people in our community that have good ideas and project ideas. So instead of hiring, for example, a full-time marketing manager, we just gave a budget to 2 community members, and now they're working part-time. They have their own budget to manage, but they are not our employees. So I think that's a big change in terms of HR structure. I think the one negative of decentralization is kind of the loss of social ties. So I think it will be much easier for people just to change jobs much faster, because they're not tied to as much tied to the other people in the company. They're just tied to their compensation of what they're getting to do that particular job. So yeah, I think that's something we need to be careful of.
Yeah. So before this discussion, Amanda and I were riffing a little bit about like retention of people within organizations, even in like, you know, a completely fluid work environment. And we were thinking like, you know, as long as people have shared values and have ways of well, I mean, really as leadership, like we need to be making sure that people are interacting with each other and getting fulfillment. And this is something like within my own team that we've been trying to figure out recently. So it's been on my mind a lot. But that's sort of heading in a tangent direction. So on this question, completely agree with both of your both of your answers. So I won't like belabor those points. But one thing that we haven't hit on yet that I think is really important is the implications of like, I guess like anonymity really, and like less information needing to be shared about you as an individual with employers. So in the like blockchain crypto sector, we've seen that it's now relatively normal for companies to hire people where you don't necessarily know that person's legal name, you don't necessarily know where they live, and this is something that's really, really powerful for inclusivity, because as of right now, like, you know, you could be female, black, whatever, like all of the different things that usually people would be discriminated against, and you can like, you know, roll up to a crypto startup and not have to disclose any of that, and that's really, really, really powerful. I see that, like, basically once this sort of new way of working, this sort of decentralized way of working becomes more mainstream, and I think it already is, but it's just getting started right now. I see like anonymous work and work where you don't have to disclose your entire life to an employer becoming something that is more normal. And I'm really, really excited about that, because I think that that's just going to be unbelievably huge for inclusivity.
That's an amazing aspect that you brought, you know, to attention there, and I think it actually moves perfectly into the next, which allows this, which is the next question about remote working, because we can't talk about Web3 and not talk about remote working. So, when the advancements in Web3 and the increasing tendency towards remote working, and what unique challenges and opportunities do companies face in recruiting talent and retaining that talent?
I feel like Amanda would have an amazing answer to this.
Well, we've been remote from the beginning. We're fully remote. Okay, what do you need to think about? One thing I'm excited about remote work from a sort of inclusivity perspective and diversity perspective is I think we're really opening up the talent pool in terms of who we can attract. So simple story, I'm a single mum that lives in New York and I'm going to spend the summer in Europe. Like, about 10 years ago, I could not have imagined a world like that. And so I think that a lot of restrictions that you may have had to talent in more traditional companies, having to go into an office, be in a specific location, are breaking down. And that, for me, that is so exciting. There's a place for everybody. But, you know, what are some of the things that you need to think about with remote work? Again, the 24/7 nature, being really disciplined around async. I've seen it so many times when people come from Web 2 into Web 3, they're working remote, and they're like responding to emails or Slack messages at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's like, stop, no, like you don't need to do that. So you do need to be really disciplined around your culture around that. I think that the way that you're going to develop talent within a company and the skills are going to be a bit different because we're on Zoom calls a lot. I think your communication skills, both written and verbal, need to be really strong because you're relying on those a lot more. I think in terms of the social connections, my biggest tip would be don't just try to do what you've always done in the past. Ask your people what they want and shape those opportunities for social connection around that. We introduced six months ago, no, a year ago, I think actually, DAO days, because they're a big deal to people in our company. So once a month, everybody just gets to have the day to work on DAOs, but we do a lot of education piece. So it's really thinking about what the people, be very transparent, ask everybody what they want, and then see what you can do to actually bring that together.
Very well put. So in sort of my journey as like a startup founder, manager, there's one sort of philosophy around how to treat employees that I really like, and it's called like entrepreneurial management. So this is not, you know, referring to you as an entrepreneur, but it's referring to empowering the individual people that are working on this stuff to feel like they have the autonomy to just really take charge of their tasks. And that means like you're delegating a lot of the direction to them. And, you know, in the more traditional hiring space, this is stuff that's very scary. Like, oh, why would you want your employees to make all the decisions about the success of the company? But if you are hiring people that are vision aligned, hiring people that you trust, even if these people are in like, you know, more fluid, like, you know, contracts or the way that you interact with them, then you should feel confident to delegate this important stuff to them. And the really cool side effect of this sort of strategy is if people feel like something is theirs, and if they feel like they have control on the decision making, and they understand that like they have your trust, really, like as a manager, if you even, you know, have those concepts in your company, then that creates like so much excitement and enthusiasm and really makes people motivated to go and do the stuff every day. So that's something that I think is just super, super important, regardless of what your organizational structure is, both in Web 2 and Web 3, but it's especially important in remote environments because, like from a logistics standpoint, it's almost impossible to be like a hovering manager. Like, my gosh, if you try to do that in a remote environment, then you're doing, you know, the crazy stuff that some companies tried during COVID where you're, you know, tracking people's time on the laptops. And it's just, that's a bunch of bullshit. Like, that doesn't make people happy, and it also doesn't achieve the goal that you have as a manager because it can be easily faked. And I won't get into that tangent. You can tell that it's frustrating to me. Anyways. Yeah, empower your people. Everyone's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I just want to touch on things that you both said, because for people to have autonomy, like you mentioned, and to have a good sense of how to manage their own time, to have good communication skills, it's very hard to have this when you're in your first job. So it's things that come with experience, come with maturity, and one of the challenges that I see in remote working is that it's very optimized for very experienced individual contributors. And in Web3, we see a lot of new people, a lot of young people, a lot of people that never had a job before. So a lot of these skills, you get them just by working, by experience, by having multiple jobs in different contexts. So I think it's very important for us as founders and managers, because when we're distant, it's harder to coach people, it's harder to identify these struggles. So I think that's a challenge that we should be focused on. And just to finish, just a quick personal take that I don't think the word remote work actually fits, especially in Web3, because remote, I think, assumes that there's a center and you're remote from it. And in the decentralized world, I prefer the word distributed a bit more, and also focusing on async, which I think is the important, working asynchronously and not actually being, I don't care where you are. It just means working asynchronously.
I think we should all adopt that from now on, actually, you know. And I just realized as well, we're not doing well on time at all, guys, so we're going to have to really be quick here. But this is actually a brilliant one, because speaking about those talent pools, this is about skill sets. And what unique skill sets do you think are in the most demand in Web3 within your organizations, and how difficult it is to keep or to cultivate those talents?
Well, just anecdotally, most of the teams that we come across, including our own team, have a lack of front-end devs. And I think that this is really funny because there are so many front-end devs out there, and a lot of times, I talk to people that are trying to get into Web3 and they're like, oh, I'm gonna learn Solidity, even if they're a front-end dev. It's like, I wanna do the Solidity stuff, because that's cool, it seems new and fun, but my gosh, you can just take your existing awesome React dev skills and then go find a bunch of opportunities here. And the learning curve to just, implement some of the Web3 functionality in applications, it's really not that high. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I'd point out. But that's, for a very specific role, I would say. In general, sort of going back to the prior question, the things that you need to have to succeed in this sort of environment is, I would say, understand the philosophy of Web3. You could, of course, just learn the tech and come in and get a job, but there's so much in this space that is deeply rooted in philosophical concepts that have been around for decades. Read why Satoshi created Bitcoin, read stuff from the cypherpunks, and then you'll be able to understand better the direction of the projects that you're working on and contribute to that vision as well. And then just you have to be good at managing your own time, because like we said, in the async, in the decentralized workforce, we're all entrepreneurs. We're all figuring our own stuff out. So if you're not good at that, find ways to become good at that. And there's plenty of ways to force yourself into patterns, and it's just about getting into good habits.
Yeah, I would focus mostly, I think the most important are the soft skills we've been talking about. So good writing, passion for learning, and autonomy, being able to do things on your own, and ask for forgiveness, not permission, that kind of mindset.
I like that one. I think I say that almost every day. Have high levels of curiosity and have a growth mindset. I think companies have a responsibility in the space that we're in to be hiring, as I said, those buckets of experience, mid, and no experience. But if you've got curiosity and drive and a growth mindset, you're going to come in and you're going to learn from the people around you and all of the resources and everything. So that would be my tip.
I like that, guys, and I like the ask for forgiveness, not permission. I was saying this thing, fail fast, fail hard, but fail fast, and just get up. So moving on, privacy and security is a huge part of Web3. Given the security and privacy concerns surrounding Web3, how can an organization handle candidates' information, and what measures are in place to protect it, especially the sensitive information around it?
I don't have much to say here. I think I can give some ideas of what could work, but I think in our cases, I think both me and Kirsten, we have small organizations, so I would say it's still very manual. But I think just throwing it out there, I think using ZK proofs instead of resumes could be one, or just like taking the anon or pseudonym culture of Web3 and using it in hiring to kind of remove some of the biases that we have are two ideas to explore, I would say.
Collect only the information that you need to collect. We are bound, unfortunately, by regulations in all of the different countries and things like that, so some information, but just collect the bare minimum and be really, really thoughtful and intentional about what we put everything behind Okta. We're very mindful of security, but just be thoughtful of the products and things that you're using and where you're storing the data. We also delete a lot as well, so we'll only keep data for the sort of minimum amount of time that we have to. So we try to be super disciplined around that.
So for we'll say like the prior, umpteen years of working in crypto and having, most folks that work in crypto be paid in crypto, this has created a lot of privacy concern around like where your money is going. Because imagine like, you're working in a normal salary job, like when that money gets sent to your bank account, you don't have everyone in the organization knowing how much you're earning. And for sure, they don't know that you're going and buying cheeseburgers and a new TV and a car and like all that stuff. But like, you can see literally where all of this is going. You can see every trade that people are doing. And a lot of people don't realize this. Like, it's sort of an afterthought. So I think that like one of the bigger things that we can be doing within our organizations, as well as like with the hiring tech that we build, is like Felipe said, using ZK technology. So this is not just important for like hiding the wallet, because even if you like are able to hide wallets, then you can still like with Chainalysis and other things like really do some tracing and figure out like who owns each wallet. So also obfuscating the transaction itself with stuff like Railgun or ZK Bob. So with Talent Layer specifically, like we have infrastructure for hiring. So this includes like identity management, those payment transactions and all of that. And we've been working a lot recently to try to find the different ZK tools that are out there and then add them as integration. So if people do want to have like completely untraceable payments while still having things like the trust that you have using blockchain technology and reputation, but just in like a fully undisclosed of who you are personally way, then you can do that.
I like it. And coming on to the hiring process, how has the onboarding process changed, do you feel, within your organizations and with the advent of Web3?
I can tell you about our onboarding at least. So I'll make it simple. We don't hire full-time employees. I mean, people can get there, but we don't hire them straight away. I mean, we did in the beginning in the past, and everyone that we hired through a normal process of kind of job posting, candidates, screening, choosing one, they were the worst hires that we did. So now the process is simple. You start with bounties, you start working on smaller projects, you kind of move on to bigger projects, and you basically go up our kind of community pyramid, so to speak. So it doesn't mean they're more important, it just means different commitment levels. So they start with a very low commitment level, and then if that goes well, they will evolve over time. And this is beneficial both for us and for the person that's interested in working with us, because we can both see if there's a culture fit, if there's a values alignment, if we work well together or not, without wasting our time, and also making sure that the time they're giving us is paid. And these have been our best hires, and we have some of, I think half of our team, full-time employees, came through this process. It also makes it easier for them, going back to the initial trend of fractional work, to actually starting to work for us without having to quit their current jobs.
Actually, onboarding is something that a couple of years ago we invested pretty heavily in because we wanted to make sure that it was a great experience. We give a lot of information as part of the onboarding, so you're immediately put into the educational portals to be able to get into all of those materials. We make sure that there's no sort of time zone sensitive nature to your onboarding, so that it doesn't matter where you are, you can access those materials and those things. Once you're starting, we're really intentional about putting like new hire circles together. Like we'll do a lot of introductions to start to create those mini communities at the individual level so that you can start to navigate and get to know the organization through the different groups. So yeah, I don't know, we're like just very thoughtful. We do like a lot of company like town halls, things like that. So we're doing as much as we can to get people exposed just outside of their team to the wider company as fast as possible.
So the structure of the team within Talent Layer is really similar to Talent Protocol. So we also just have a lot of open source contributors that work on bounties, and then we have core team members that are full-time, and exact same sort of flow that Talent Protocol uses. The thing with that is like it's amazing, but when it comes to like scaling that, we haven't really seen how effectively we can do that because we're still small, right? So I wanted to mention one community that I feel like has really scaled that well, and that's Codadot. So Codadot is a project in the Polkadot ecosystem. It is a open source NFT marketplace that's currently the biggest marketplace in the Polkadot ecosystem. And the structure of their team is fascinating because they have just, like 200 some open source contributors, and they have basically like you start off doing some work and you're actually not paid, and then after you do a couple of those well, people, like anyone in the community that's reached a certain level can then allocate money for your bounties if they think that you're, a good contributor. And then, the more that those people progress upwards, the more money that they can allocate. And it's just sort of this nice autonomous machine that, the founders don't have to manage as directly. So they've done a super good job of allowing that to scale, and I'm so excited to try to get to that point ourselves. Yeah.
And I'm just going to go straight in because we've got 4 questions left and about 10 minutes. So getting down to the nitty gritty. So challenges, what are some of the main challenges that you guys are facing in your organizations and when it comes to HR recruitment, and how have you overcome them?
So, I mean, this is a challenge that we haven't quite overcome yet, and it references some things that Felipe pointed out earlier, and that is getting the connectivity right amongst the people in the organization. And we're trying a bunch of things, of course. So trying to all meet up in person once every few months, trying to have ways to get to know each other, like questions of the week, which people like, and just hanging out in Discord, popping in, co-working, stuff like that. But it's an evolving process, and I think that we probably have a lot to learn from Amanda, who's been doing such a good job at this for so long.
Challenges. I think the pace at which things change is really challenging. I feel like some weeks, we're formulating something we want to do, and by the time we're ready to execute on it, it's probably changed. So, and that can be really exhausting. I think the other one is company fatigue. That is one thing that I've noticed about a remote work culture, because you're just pushing everything out through sort of Slack or email or another Zoom call. And if you've got a lot of programs happening, and in our industry, there's always something happening. That it's so busy. And so I'm really mindful of that company fatigue. People can get exhausted. It's so much information coming at them, and you don't have the beauty of when you were in an office and you could see that. So I think being really mindful around that. I think that the social connection bit is really interesting. We've been trying out an idea around, because we have no offices, of doing these pop-up offices in kind of like core locations. So we'll, you know, pop an office up for a week, and then anyone that's within a certain vicinity of that, you know, go in and, you know, and no pressure of like, you know, normally a lot of companies will do the get together as like a retreat or a conference, and that can be very overwhelming for people and they get exhausted just thinking about it. And so there's something that's just a bit more like, no, this is just a pop-up office. You don't have to prepare anything. You can just like, you know, come in, hang out, do lunches, those kind of things. So we did do a pilot of that, and that was really successful. So I think that's something, you know, that we're going to do. But definitely the fatigue bit, information fatigue, is one to watch out for.
Perfect. We can move straight into the next one. And this one's about future trends, guys. So looking ahead, what trends do you anticipate in the Web3 talent market in the next couple of years?
I'm sure Kirsten has a lot to say here, given what she's building. But I would say one thing that I think will be useful is like having an employer's reputation kind of more public and on-chain. That will also open the opportunity for like employer branding, on-chain employer branding almost. So being a lot more open about how do you feel when working for a company, and being much more visible and transparent, and that helping your process of choosing who to work for. And I think, yeah, that will force employers to actually do the right thing, because otherwise everyone will see it.
I think we're going to continue to see the evolution of remote workforce and what that means. My hope is we're going to see even more diversity on all levels because of that. I think you are going to see the internal structure of organizations being much more like DAOs and be very, very community kind of structured. That's very fascinating. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like right now, but I do think that that's where we're going to see things going, and it's definitely what we're kind of ideating around now and seeing what that means. So yeah, I think that will keep growing, and what will be interesting is we will get more experience on the talent side in the marketplace. And so you'll also see a shift in terms of how you're going out to attract talent, because obviously you're going to have like more experience there. We all have a big responsibility in making sure that we're building the external marketplace as well and educating people.
So I think that the biggest shift that blockchain is bringing to hiring is people will be able to get hired not based on who you are and who you know, but rather based on what you have done and what you are doing. And this is something that comes from just the fact that this information is on-chain, and things like on-chain attestations from previous employers, and having that be something that's transparent. Because the reason that we have such like unintended, like sometimes bias is intended, but a lot of the time it's unintended. The reason we have so much unintended bias in hiring based on things like where you went to university, or what you look like, or like who you got an introduction from, is because these are heuristics. So these are me as an employer trying to figure out the best I can I trust you, without having really seen your prior work. And this is really dangerous, because it leads to things like you hire someone and they actually don't do well. And also, you not hire someone because you accidentally discriminated based on this or this or that. So if we have the ability to reference data that is verifiable, then all of a sudden, like, that becomes the best heuristic we have. Like, this is the thing where we know exactly what someone's output's going to be based on their prior outputs. So that's just going to be really, it's going to fuel equitability, and that's what I'm really excited for.
Amazing. And now we're looking for some of your words of wisdom and advice. And if you could give one piece of advice to HR professionals and entrepreneurs trying to navigate talent acquisition in Web3 space, what would it be?
I'll go first. Okay. I think my advice is a common one, which is always be hiring. So when you actually need to hire, it's the worst time for you to actually be hired, because you're under stress and pressure, and you're much more likely to fall into these biases. So always be hiring, and I think in Web3 this means always having some bounties open so that you get an inflow of people coming in, applying for small things that they can keep doing. And also, I think more importantly, to make your onboarding process, like we were talking about, permissionless. So permissionless is a buzzword that we talk about a lot, but it doesn't have to be a technical thing or about smart contracts. It's just about making it possible for people to figure it out for themselves. So if you're onboarding, if they can do the onboarding on their own whenever they want it, it's much easier than you having to do when you select the people. So they'll come to you, they've done bounties for you, they're already self-onboarded, so it's much easier to hire when you have these pool of people to choose from.
I think this is a book, but I love this saying, what got you here is not what's going to get you there. And that is really what everybody, like whether it be in HR, management in companies, need to get their head around. I think you have to mirror the principles of Web3. You have to build trust. You have to build communities. You have to lead with transparency. And these cannot just be words you say. You actually have to back them up with actions. And you have to understand the talent that is in the space, what motivates them, how they're going to grow, and you have to build your practices around that. But I cannot stress enough, the way things have been done before, it's going to be different. And if you're not prepared to change, then I think that you're going to have a really hard time.
So my answer is a sort of a fusion of both of your answers. So I'll completely retweet everything that Felipe said. Amazing. I also agree that things need to be done differently from how traditional hiring has happened. But I also think that there's a lot of really good examples out there that we have over like the open source projects that have existed over the past decades. Because like open source technology, these decentralized working communities isn't something that's new necessarily. So there's plenty of like really old school projects like Linux, for example, that are just amazing case studies of how to like take something from a concept to a massive ecosystem with even things like enterprise adoption. So learn history, read the history books.
Amazing. And we actually had time to get to my bonus question, guys. We have to talk about AI right now. And how can AI technically, revolutionize the job search, application, and onboarding process for your organizations within Web3? And are you actively establishing AI systems within your organizations?
So I would say biggest like help that AI can have is matching. So basically what we're doing as hirers is we're trying to cast as wide of the net as possible, trying to find as many people as possible. We can only physically review so many applications, so many backgrounds. So especially when we have like a lot of on-chain records of people's work history, put an AI on top of that, and then it can digest all that information and spit out really high quality recommendations for where people should work and who you should hire. So I think that's the most powerful part.
And just adding to that, I think it can even help us not fall into our human biases. Although it can introduce some AI biases that we don't know about yet, but I think will probably be better than our own.
I think we're just starting to scratch the surface on what it will mean in terms of like an HR side of thing or talents. I think that'll be interesting to see how that evolves. I'm really excited about it. I mean, I love technology, and I think for me, the space that we're in right now around it in terms of sort of like a company perspective, and I mean like all companies, is understanding what it means for your company and educating people. I think we're in the education phase from a company perspective, and just helping people like understand how they can use it so that we can then explore where you're going to be utilizing it across companies. But I do think it will become really prevalent in the talent acquisition space for sure.
Amazing. And I just want to do a final comment there in terms of, we spoke about it earlier in terms of diversity, but how focused is the Web3 space on inclusivity, diversity and equality for everyone in the space, and how focused are your organizations on achieving that for the wider goal?
So that's two questions there. How focused do I think the Web3 community space is? Not as much as I'd like. to be honest. I think sometimes it's a little bit trailing, and I think when you're in an emerging space, there's other kind of focuses and priorities. So I don't mean that in a bad way, but I don't think it's at the forefront of the conversation, would be my opinion. In terms of companies and what they're doing, I mean, like I said, I think the very nature of how we're working, where we're working, when we're working is actually going to be amazing in terms of attracting lots and lots of diversity into the space. And I think that it is a responsibility of companies to make sure they've got the right mechanisms and supports in place to be able to bring that talent in, and also to promote the benefits of working in Web3. So anyway, I'm not saying that Web3 is not like diverse, but I just don't think it's part of the major conversation at the moment.
I would completely agree on like the state of Web3. I also think it depends on like what sub area of the blockchain sector we're talking about. Like DeFi, my God, most teams are doing a horrible job. But then like, you know, moving into the NFT space, I think we have like way more women involved in this sector, which is really, really cool. As far as like, you know, what we can be doing, I think that there's sort of like active ways of helping with diversity, and also passive ways. So passive would be, you know, just the fact that you are able to get hired without disclosing all your personal information, or you're able to get hired in a flexible work environment. I mean, this in itself does mean that it's easier to get involved and easier for you to like just not have some of the worries about biases and stuff like that. And then on the other side, there's active, which is like you're literally going out there to events and like with specific targeted campaigns to get people of certain types involved. I think that organizations need to be doing both. For us, like we're so small, like and like you said, like when you're small, when an organization ecosystem is like really young, there do seem to be other priorities. So right now, I will unfortunately say we're more so just doing the passive stuff as opposed to a lot of the active stuff, but we hope to be able to do that soon.
I just want to reinforce, I think, two things we said here that can help with diversity. I think the first is that idea of funding the community instead of hiring employees, because this will mostly be based on past contributions and merit and not on the other biases that we have. And the other one that you mentioned is also the fact that a lot of companies in DAOs pay people in crypto on-chain. It means that what they're paying is transparent, which will mean more equal pay to everyone, no matter where you are or what's your gender or anything else.
And just like to say that we were always going to go over time, so apologies to everybody, but could we please get a round of applause for Kirsten, Amanda, and Felipe? I just want to say a massive thank you to Manu, the ETH Barcelona team, from the engineers at the back, the sound guys, the lighting, the day-to-day work they're doing. Shagan as an example, coordinating. Everybody here has created this event, and obviously a big thank you to all you guys. John, the MC of the most. I mean, this guy's got a comedy club, right? I mean, go down and check his comedy out. Just everybody here, just so much love for you all. So round of applause to all of you.